In the skies above North Korea, a new kind of air war is raging at 500 miles per hour. Jet versus jet, dogfighting for the first time in history. At the knife edge of the speed of sound, life or death is decided in fractions of a second. Now you're in the cockpit as American pilots pit their F86 Sabers against communist MiG-15s, redefining air combat in pursuit of a previously unknown glory, the title of Jet Ace. Experience the battle, dissect the tactics, relive the dogfights. May 20th, 1951, American F-86 Saber jets ripped through enemy airspace above Sinuiju, North Korea at over 500 miles per hour. Their objective is simple: lure enemy MiGs into a fight and kill as many as possible. These pilots are pioneers of a new age. Air combat is now driven by the jet engine.
These guys went into a very unknown environment. They went into a very tough war. This wasn't World War II. They took airplanes that were flying at twice the speed of any fighter combat before, and they showed us how it was done.
James Jabara flies element lead in a flight of 6. The 27-year-old captain is one of the best. A Mustang pilot during World War II, he's become a master of jet versus jet combat. With 4 MiG-15 kills to his credit, he's one away from becoming the first American ace of the jet age.
Jabara is so close. I mean, he's got 4 MiG kills. The Air Force desperately wants an ace, and he's the guy that can do it.
After only minutes in enemy territory, he'll get his chance. 50 gleaming MiG-15s scream across the Yalu River to take on the Americans. Jabara punches his tanks to streamline his fighter for combat, but something goes wrong.
He loses only one of his tanks, gets a huge asymmetric rocking motion on the aircraft, probably bangs his head off the canopy, has a difficult time controlling the airplane.
The pins securing the tanks to the wing have frozen, a common problem in the frigid skies of North Korea. Standing orders dictate that he must return to base.
He puts both hands on the stick, steadies it, and gets the aircraft back under control, and then in a very short amount of time has to make that critical combat decision. Can I still fight with this airplane? Now, his judgment is weighed with his aggressiveness, and his aggressiveness wins out.
Jabara and the rest of the Americans pull a right break into the oncoming enemy. Approaching head-on, the fighters close at over 1,600 feet per second. At this speed, it's next to impossible to get an accurate shot. The MiGs thunder past. Jabara jerks the stick hard left to pursue. The Hun wing tank turns his F-86 into a bucking Bronco.
He's probably pulling 30, 40, 50 pounds of stick force right there and trying to control his jet as he's pulling lead out in front.
Jabara's wingman, Salvatore Kemp, calls out 3 more MiGs diving fast from behind. The MiGs are here. They've gained a 100-mile-per-hour speed advantage in the dive. Jabara and Kemp are here, with only a split second to counter them. The MiGs hurtle in. Jabara pulls up and to the right. He's using the MiG's diving speed against them, forcing an overshoot.
Jabara's brake turn up to the right forces two MiGs to go right by and continue to go. One MiG, for one reason or another, decides to peel off to the left, exposing his belly to Jabara.
Jabara pounces. He snaps his plane to the left and locks onto tail end Charlie.
Not only is that the sign of a good fighter pilot, but it's a sign of a good fighter pilot in the new jet age. Things happen extremely fast, and those that are able to react almost before it happens are able to take advantage.
The bandit stays in a diving left turn. Jabara pulls the stick in tight to stay in trail. At this altitude, the F86 and MiG-15 are evenly matched in a turning fight. But Jabara's got something his foe lacks: a G-suit. It's a World War II invention that came into its own as an essential tool of dogfighting in the jet age. The G-suit constricts around Jabara's legs and abdomen, keeping blood from pooling in his extremities. Jabara is able to pull tighter than the MiG pilot without blacking out. He closes the gap. His coveted fifth kill is now in perfect position, dead center in his gun sight. Jabara opens fire. 50 caliber rounds impact the MiG. The pilot ejects. Seconds later, the empty fuselage explodes.
This is what he's been working for. This is why he's been in Korea. So he has got to be elated at this point.
It's a confirmed kill. America has its first jet ace. James Jabara honed his skills in the prop-driven fighters of World War II. After the war, he became one of the first American pilots to fly the next generation of combat aircraft, the jet fighter. In a turbojet engine, air enters an intake and is compressed into a combustion chamber where fuel is added and ignited. The rapidly expanding gas forces its way through a turbine and out the exhaust port, creating a massive amount of forward thrust. The jet engine was pioneered by British and German engineers during World War II. In the waning months of the war, the Germans were the first to send a jet fighter into combat, the ME-262. Twin turbojet engines gave it a 100-mile-per-hour speed advantage over prop fighters. The ME-262 combined jet technology with an innovative swept-wing design. The swept wing created less drag than a conventional straight wing, allowing for higher top speeds. During the war years, both the Russians and Americans developed their own first-generation jet fighters, the MiG-9 and the P-59 era Comet. But these underpowered straight-wing designs never saw combat. In 1947, when German technology became available, both the Americans and the Russians adapted the swept wing. The result was the F86 Saber and the MiG-15. The F-86 had exceptional visibility and a strong airframe designed for air-to-air combat. The MiG was lighter, with a faster rate of climb and a higher service ceiling. In the skies above North Korea, these fighters would square off in the first large-scale jet versus jet dogfights in history. May 20th, 1951. After 6 months of high-speed air combat, James Jabara has just become America's first jet ace. But a massive air battle is still raging above him.
There was never an inclination in his mind to break off and go home just because he made ace. His job in Korea was to kill MiGs.
Jabara coaxes his Saber to 20,000 feet. His wingman is nowhere in sight. With a hung tank and nobody watching his 6, he has 2 strikes against him.
There's a swirl of activity. There are MiGs, there are Sabers in the air. He looks forward and he sees 6 MiGs in the air above him. He immediately goes in the attack mode, just as you would expect him to, and he immediately goes for the trail aircraft, which is the smart thing to do, to pick them off one by one from behind.
Jabara's gun ports are blazing. The MiG formation scatters, but number 6 climbs straight ahead.
Jim was trying to close the gap, but of course the F86 was slower than the MiG in the climb to begin with. With the hung tank, it was very slow, and this MiG could have easily gotten away.
But the MiG pilot makes a critical mistake and suddenly dives to the left. The maneuver plays right into the Saber's strength. It's faster in a dive. Jabara draws a bead and pulls the trigger, shredding his enemy's engine. The powerless jet tumbles, his 6th kill. Suddenly, tracer fire envelops Jabara's canopy. The tables have turned. MiGs are on his 6 o'clock, closing in to avenge their fallen comrade.
Well, now Jabara has committed a couple of cardinal sins. Don't engage if you can't drop your tank. Don't engage if you don't have a wingman. Don't fixate on the target. And that's exactly what he's done in this case.
James Jabara realizes that his quest to become a jet ace could cost him his life. May 20th, 1951. Captain James Jabara is running for his life from 2 MiG-15s. He pulls hard to the left, attempting to throw his attackers off. Glowing 37 and 23 millimeter tracers smoke past the right side of his F86. Jabara pushes his J-47 jet engine to full power. 5,200 pounds of thrust. But the hung wing tank limits his speed to 500 miles per hour. 100 miles per hour less than the MiGs. What's worse, it handicaps his turning ability.
With that tank and the slower speed, Jim was a sitting duck.
He pulls hard, hits his speed brakes, pulls his speed brakes in, reverses, turns hard the other way, rolls out, accelerates, turns, doing this just to momentarily break up the gun firing solution from the MiGs.
The enemy pilots are padlocked on his tail.
He is meat on the table, and unless something happens, Jabara's 6th kill will be his last kill.
Luckily for Jabara, something does happen. American pilots Mo Pitts and Rudy Holly happen upon the scene. The Sabers are here. The MiGs are here, behind Jabara. The Americans will dive quickly to close the gap and knock the MiGs off Jabara's tail. At jet speeds, they'll have mere seconds to accomplish their goal.
Pitts and Holly roll in behind the MiGs. One of the MiGs pulls off. But the flight leader MiG is not so eager to get out of there.
MiG leader lines up his shot, but Holly is in position. His M3 machine guns roar to life. The MiG smokes, breaks for home. The Americans' slashing attack has worked. Pitts and Holly form up with Jabara and escort him home. As Jabara taxis in, he finds a crowd waiting for him.
It was a great day. We had our first jet ace, and we had a big celebration on the ramp, carried him around.
Jabara is awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. After his 123rd mission, he is sent home to a hero's welcome. He returns to Korea in 1953 and adds an astonishing 9 more MiG kills to his tally, becoming one of only 2 triple aces during the war.
Jabara was the first jet ace that the U.S. Air Force had. And this was a major triumph and a major accomplishment. He would be the first of many during that war, and he led the way.
Jabara's historic achievement sets the bar for every American fighter pilot in Korea. With each new fighter sweep, Saber pilots clamor for enemy encounters. They can't be the first jet ace, but with a little luck, they can be the second. First Lieutenant Hoot Gibson is one of these men.
I could hardly wait. I was ready to go fight. I'd trained for 6 years to do this.
June 18, 1951. Less than 1 month after James Jabara's ace-making encounter, First Lieutenant Hoot Gibson heads into North Korea on combat air patrol. The confident 26-year-old pilot has yet to be credited with a confirmed kill, but he's aggressive and has superb mastery of jet combat tactics.
I had a lot of fighter time and a lot of experience simulating dogfighting. We thought we could whip anything, anybody in any airplane.
Heading west toward the China Sea, Gibson spots glints at 3 o'clock high. MiGs. Gibson is here with a formation of 18 American Sabers. 50 MiGs are here, 3,000 feet above at 3 o'clock. The MiG's higher service ceiling means they can choose when and where they want to fight. Outnumbering the Sabers nearly 3 to 1, the MiGs dive in. The Americans turn to engage the enemy head-on. Gibson throttles up. His Saber covers 1 mile every 7 seconds. The jets merge in the blink of an eye.
I started climbing right turn to try to be above them and maneuver to the rear of them.
Hoot and his wingman swing in behind the enemy formation and single out a straggling MiG. The MiG brakes hard to the left. Gibson maintains track and centers his Saber's A1C radar-ranging gun sight. A radar unit in the nose calculates the distance, and the gun sight determines the necessary lead to put rounds on target. Gibson pulls the trigger. With each burst, 60 .50 caliber rounds tear into the enemy jet. The MiG pilot tightens his turn and dives toward the deck, trying to throw off Gibson's aim.
They had their nose below the horizon, and I was behind them, but I was on the inside of the turn, and they were turning about 2 to 3 degrees, and I couldn't quite stay with them.
Straining at over 5 Gs, Gibson is pulling so hard that he can't keep an angle on his target. The MiG drifts out of his gun sight. Gibson's wingman, Jim Heckman, has a better angle on the enemy.
My wingman was in position to take him, so I told him to go ahead and shoot at him, and he did.
Heckman scores devastating hits, but Gibson must do something to regain a firing angle. He'll call on a tried and true air combat maneuver, the barrel roll. He'll pitch up, roll around his wingman, and position himself on the outside.
He's not only out of his wingman's bullets, but he is also putting himself back in position to take another shot without hitting his wingman.
I maneuvered in behind them and got a good burst on him. And then he projected.
One down. But since Heckman scored the most damage, he'll get the credit.
Made the right choice, the instinctive maneuver to stop his downrange travel, roll back into another firing solution while giving his wingman the shot, and then also the wingman got the kill. That's a hell of a guy.
With so many MiGs in the sky, it takes only seconds for Hoop to tally a new target. Another pair of MiGs, 2,000 feet below at 2 o'clock. Easy pickings. But Gibson's gun sight suddenly goes blank.
It was probably dirt in the circuit breaker or something. I just reset it with my hand, but it wouldn't reset. It kept popping out.
No guts, no glory. Gun sight or no gun sight, Hoot Gibson is going on the attack. June 18, 1951. In a wild jet versus jet dogfight, F86 pilot Hoot Gibson has seen one MiG-15 go down in flames. He's now in position to attack 2 more. The enemy jets are here. Gibson and his wingman are here. He has 2 options. He can nose down into a dive, but he may overshoot. His best option is to barrel roll. The maneuver will put him squarely on the MiG's tail. Gibson pitches up, applying right rudder and aileron.
So as they roll over and lose altitude and roll back down in front of the MiGs, they're in perfect firing position.
Hoot rolls wings level with 2 MiGs at his 12 o'clock. The enemy jets pitch up. The lighter MiGs can climb faster than the Sabers. Gibson must act quickly before they get away.
I didn't have a gun sight anymore, so I had to stay close, and I'd say 400 or 500 feet, and I put the airplane in my windscreen at about where I thought the pipper would be.
This guy's a good shot. He doesn't necessarily need a radar in order to be able to figure out what the range is. He knows from his experience how big that MiG looks in his windscreen to be at the range where he wants to fire.
Hoot fires 2 dead center bursts into the communist jet. The MiG pilot ejects as his entire right wing rips off. It's Gibson's first official kill. As the enemy plane spirals from view, Hoot catches sight of his commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Ben Emmert, below him at his 2 o'clock. He's chasing a MiG, but he's not alone. There's another MiG on his tail, closing in for the kill.
He had tunnel vision for that MiG, and I called him and told him I had a MiG was on his tail, but I would be able to take care of him.
Hoot acts quickly. Yet again, he barrel rolls to the right. Gibson levels out with the MiG dead ahead. The MiG spots Gibson and jinks violently in a desperate attempt to shake his pursuer.
He turned to the left and maybe lowered the nose 3 or 4 degrees below the horizon. I stayed right with him. He turned back to the right, and he just helped me stay in position. I got 2 more good bursts into him.
The MiG bursts into flames. At 3,000 feet, the jet explodes. In a matter of minutes, Hoot Gibson has seen 3 MiGs down, scoring 2 confirmed kills for himself, putting him in the running to become America's next jet ace. He claims his 3rd kill 3 weeks later on July 11th, his 4th on September 2nd, and on September 9th, 1951, Gibson downs a 5th, realizing his dream of becoming a jet ace. But the kill comes just minutes after Captain Dick Becker shoots down his 5th MiG. Officially, Becker is credited as the 2nd jet ace. Hoot Gibson is the 3rd.
I felt good. That's what we were supposed to be doing, and I felt like that we were getting payback for all the training I'd been given.
The early jet aces used the same principles of air combat developed for piston engine fighters of World War II. But techniques and tactics had to adapt to the new realities of high-altitude, high-speed jet combat. Fuel management became the overriding consideration in Korean War jet combat. Instead of the large squadron-sized formations of World War II, it was determined that flights of 4 Sabers continuously streaming in and out of the combat zone was the most efficient use of resources. This necessitated strict adherence to flight integrity and keeping the basic Finger 4 formation intact. At jet speeds, any sudden maneuver could easily split a flight of 4, or cause a lead to be separated from his wingman. An American fighter left alone was vulnerable. The rule was, singles go south. Just weeks before the air war ends, 28-year-old Captain Ralph Parr will face this danger firsthand in one of the most harrowing dogfights of the new jet age. June 7th, 1953, 20 miles south of the Yalu River. Sabers of the 335th Fighter Squadron soar at 43,000 feet, hunting for enemy aircraft. Second Lieutenant Al Cox is element lead. On Cox's wing is Captain Ralph Parr.
The weather was absolutely beautiful. If it had been just slightly clearer and you could have got slightly higher, you could have seen Paris. The visibility was so good.
But the stillness is shattered in an instant. A flight of MiGs bounces them from 9 o'clock high. Parr spots the attackers and calls a left brake, but the lead element brakes right. In an instant, flight integrity is compromised. Flight lead orders Cox and Parr to withdraw and form up. Parr keeps his eyes peeled.
As I was sweeping with my eyes to the lower right, I spotted a movement against the coloration of the ground. I called it out as a bogey, and Cox came right back and he says, "I don't have it. You take it. I've got you covered."
The MiG is heading in the opposite direction, far below him at treetop level. It's Parr's first chance for a kill. He wings over to intercept the MiG with a split S. In the maneuver, Parr will dive, reverse direction, and drop in behind the MiG. The speed his jet builds in the dive will easily allow him to close the distance on his enemy. Parr snaps his plane over and firewalls the throttle. The move is so sudden that Cox doesn't see where Parr is headed.
He called me and he said, "I've lost you. Which way did you go?" I said, "I went straight down. Come on down, see if you can find me."
He rapidly accelerates past 670 miles per hour, cracking the sound barrier. It's not uncommon for the Saber to pass Mach 1 in a dive, but its flight controls are ill-equipped to deal with these speeds.
The F86 came around in an era when we were breaking the sound barrier and understanding transonics and what went on with airplanes when they did go supersonic. And in a dive approaching supersonic speeds, the flight control surfaces will be far less responsive, and it may be not possible to recover from a dive.
Parr knows that the Saber needs 14,500 feet to pull out of a vertical dive, but he's already dropped below 10,000 feet.
In the new jet age, things just get away from you. The speed builds up, and there's no way you can dissipate it because you don't have the aircraft controllability to slow your airplane down at that point. Even with idle boards, he's rocketing this jet at the ground at roughly 600 knots, 700 miles an hour roughly. And he's there, and he's about to die.
June 7th, 1953. Captain Ralph Parr is diving towards a MiG-15 that is hugging the treetops. Parr's biggest concern isn't the Bandit, but terra firma, rushing up at him at 1,000 feet per second. Self-preservation is now the only thing that matters. Parr pulls back on the stick, hard. He grunts like a weightlifter to keep from blacking out. The pull of 9 times the force of gravity instantly inflates the G-suit, gripping his abdomen and legs. For a moment, his body weighs 1,400 pounds.
I suddenly realized, breathe. You're not breathing. Well, the reason I wasn't breathing is my G-suit had swollen up due to the G-load in the pullout, and I couldn't get any air in my lungs.
The horizon slowly slides into view outside his windscreen. Parr is alive by only inches. He's probably bent the airplane, but he's still flying. The MiG is now directly in front of him, still hugging the ground. Parr is gaining rapidly. Then, a shattering realization.
I looked straight ahead, and I could see one aircraft. Within a split second, I could see 2, I could see 4. The 4 multiplied into another 4, and then the other 4 multiplied into another 8.
Parr discovers that there are 16 bandits off his nose. He's on his own. The usual tactics don't apply. He'll rely on skill and pure guts to get out of this alive. He singles out the leader of the 8 MiGs out in front.
I'm going to take the lead aircraft because he's got the most experience, and cut the Indians loose rather than the other way around.
Still carrying a 100-mile-per-hour speed advantage from his hair-raising dive, Parr closes quickly within 3,000 feet, gun range. He squeezes the trigger. The MiGs scatter. The MiG leader lifts his nose and brakes hard right. Parr throws the stick over to stay with him.
With the onset of G, the speed, it's a very athletic endeavor to get yourself into a dogfight. To go from weighing 190 pounds to 1,300 pounds in a split second, and having that 1,300 pounds of weight on you for 30 seconds is unbelievable.
Parr strains to keep his head upright and eyes outside.
I was somewhere between 9.5 Gs, and my light on my gun sight, the reticle and the pipper, disappeared.
Either a fuse has blown or a circuit breaker tripped. Not surprising, given the abuse thrown at the Saber in the last 60 seconds.
It was irritating. You're expecting to use it, you're depending on having it there, and all of a sudden it quits.
There's no time to dwell on it. Parr's on the verge of overtaking the MiG. His worst mistake would be to overshoot. He cuts the throttle to idle, pops his speed brakes, and does a half roll to bleed off airspeed.
To keep from overshooting him, I came up and left it in close to him, so we wound up pretty much canopy to canopy like this.
MiG leader counters Parr's move. He's no slouch. The two silver jets begin an incredible aerial ballet, twisting around each other, barely 500 feet from the ground. It's called a rolling scissors. The object is to bring your guns to bear on your opponent by forcing him to slip out front. The only way to do that is by gradually reducing airspeed to the razor's edge of sustained flight.
Now looking down through his canopy, I could see his feet, I could even see the laces in his boots.
Parr uses stick and rudder with just enough throttle. The MiG does the same. It's energy management in the extreme. Coordination is key. Someone is bound to slip up. It's the MiG pilot. He adds a little too much throttle in the roll and moves ahead of Parr.
I thought, friend, that cost you. And I booted outside rudder, outside aileron, and tried to slide in behind him. The next thing that went through my mind is, I'm gonna hit him.
Parr's heart is about to leap out of his chest. He slides the Saber's nose just inches from the MiG's shark-like tail. It's too close for comfort. The F86 is thumped hard by the MiG's jet wash, a new hazard in the jet age. Parr controls the buffeting Saber, reduces power, and backs off.
I pulled the trigger, I hit him. He zigged off to one side, and I latched onto him, climbed into the saddle.
But MiG leader is not about to throw in the towel.
He rolled underneath, which caught me totally by surprise. I hadn't anticipated that at all.
The MiG snap rolls to quickly change direction, attempting to regain the advantage and use his jet wash to keep Parr at bay. Parr stays on him like glue, but he must avoid the MiG's exhaust. The hot blast could flip the Saber at any moment. And as low as they are, there's no room to recover. But Ralph Parr is not about to give up now. June 7, 1953. F-86 Saber pilot Ralph Parr is in hot pursuit of a MiG-15. Literally. The MiG has already forced him into a death-defying roll.
As I was following him, he started to do it again. This time, I thought, you're not going to catch me on that.
Parr will pitch up and roll over the top. It's a bold move that will put him in firing position and clear of the MiG's jet wash.
I went over the top, and I was sitting there waiting on him when he came out of the tucking it under, and he was right in front of me. Then I let him have it.
The MiG lights up like a Roman candle. After an exhausting contest, Parr tastes victory for the first time. But there's no time to gloat. A quick glance over his left shoulder. More MiGs diving on him from 8 o'clock. Parr adds power while snapping the stick hard left. The Saber responds instantly. Orange tracers drift menacingly close to his tail. The MiGs try to stay with him, but they're too fast. The first MiG overshoots, followed by the second, and the third. But the number 4 MiG stays in trail. The experienced Saber pilot senses his enemy is about to bug out.
He got disheartened a little bit, and he didn't think he was going to make it.
If he can trick the MiG and draw it in closer, Parr can force an overshoot and then go on the attack.
What I had to do then was to back off on my turn to make it easier for him to get a shot at me.
Parr widens his turn, allowing the MiG to think he has a chance. The MiG pilot takes the bait and maneuvers for a shot. Parr will wait until the last second, then load up and increase his turn rate. If the MiG overshoots, Parr will be able to reverse his turn and drop in on the MiG's tail. The MiG begins pulling lead. Parr pulls the stick back, adding power and throwing in more aileron. The MiG flashes by. Parr reverses, rolling in behind his target.
Then I took the tracers and just very slowly walked them up through his airplane.
Splash 2 for Ralph Parr. But almost instantly, another MiG streaks in, cannon blazing. Again, Parr puts the Saber into a crushing turn to force another overshoot. The MiG-15 screams past him, too fast to engage. The MiG climbs to rejoin his comrades. They've had enough. During 8 sweat-drenched minutes of jet-on-jet combat, Ralph Parr has engaged 16 MiGs and shot down 2. This won't be Ralph Parr's last encounter with the enemy in MiG Alley. He scores 8 more kills in record time, proving himself to be one of the most aggressive fighter pilots in U.S. Air Force history. Parr joins James Jabara as one of only 11 pilots to claim 10 or more victories over Korea.
The jet aces of the Korean War were the pioneers of the sky. They were very much a no-excuses bunch, and they showed us the way. They provided us with some tremendous uplifting victories in that war.
These are the guys that have mastered the speed, the new dogfighting. They've used tactics of old, but they're doing it at breakneck speed.
In the crucible of air combat over Korea, these elite few fought the battles and wrote the textbook on jet versus jet warfare. Many of these veteran pilots stayed in the cockpit to take the next generation of jet fighters to war, shattering the sound barrier above Southeast Asia and ushering in the missile age. The modern era of air warfare was born, owing to the intrepid young aviators who stared down a communist onslaught and won. The legacy of the Jet Aces.